everyone, I'm Ethan Liu with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. A former military officer and leader of a small political party has been charged with spying for China. As Chelsea Wu reports, the specific allegations are raising concerns among many in Taiwan.
A retired military officer, singing the patriotic song of Taiwan's military academy. But this veteran, Chu Hongyi, has been indicted along with 6 others. The charges they face: colluding with members of China's military to plan attacks inside Taiwan, potentially including the unofficial U.S. embassy. It's one of several cases of active and retired military personnel in Taiwan being accused of espionage for China.
这个部门的理解是我们没有现役军人涉案，但是就国防部立场啊，我们还是要对这些被吸收的退役军人要予以严厉的谴责，即使是被役的这些军人或者是退役之后呢，还是要对国家负有忠诚的义务。
Chu is accused of receiving more than $91,000 US to gather intelligence and recruit others to carry out attacks on Taiwan's military and political leaders in conjunction with the Chinese invasion. Chu and others allegedly gathered photos and other intelligence on military bases in southern Taiwan's Pingdong County, Alishan in the country center, and even the unofficial U.S. embassy in Taipei, known as the American Institute in Taiwan, or AIT. Chu may not be the first military veteran to be accused of spying for China, but the alleged planning of armed attacks, not only against Taiwanese targets, but potentially even American ones, is just one of the factors that makes this particular case so unique. Chu's case is also unique because of his political activities. He established a small political party in 2023. The Interior Ministry says it may now be dissolved under a law banning parties that pose national security threats. While no member of Chu's party has ever held office, his background in both the military and politics has lawmakers on both sides of the aisle concerned.
中共持续对我退役军人里面来渗透，本席非常的谴责，且这种动作对两岸的和平是不利的。
中国渗透一定会有中间人，除了退役的将领，还会有谁呢？最重要的就是我们的立法委员，可以见到中国的官员，又可以接触国家的机密，又可以接触到一般的人民，做选民服务嘛。所以对中国来讲，立法委员是完美的中间人。
Taiwan's Mainland Affairs Council has said if the allegations are true, the veterans involved will lose their pensions. With an increasing number of espionage cases involving Taiwan's veterans, there is growing unease that some individuals who once dedicated their careers to defending the nation might now pose a threat to its security. Klein Wang, Chris Gorin, and Chelsea Wu for TaiwanPlus.
Lawmakers are reviewing bills on the preservation of historical sites. The issue has sparked debate across political parties and activist groups, with some accusing the main opposition Kuomintang of trying to get rid of its dark mark on Taiwan's history. Joyce Sun reports.
In the spotlight at the legislature is how to preserve Taiwan's historical sites of injustice like this one from the White Terror era, an almost 4-decade-long period of brutal martial law which saw tens of thousands of people imprisoned and killed under Kuomintang rule. This Taipei post office was where military police and civilians clashed on February 28, 1947, one of the events that triggered the authoritarian crackdown. The Kuomintang today is the main opposition party, and at the legislature, lawmakers from across the political spectrum are reviewing various proposals on what preserving sites like this looks like. A group of human rights activists are taking issue with one particular proposal from 2 Kuomintang lawmakers to expand the definition of sites of injustice beyond the White Terror period, to include those from the Qing dynasty and the Japanese colonial era. They say this downplays the harm caused by the then Kuomintang regime.
这会发生什么情况呢？会发生未来我们的民众根本搞不清楚什么叫做这个不义遗址，根本搞不清楚什么叫威权的统治，更不清楚说威权统治跟民主转型有什么样的关联性。
Those calling for the changes say they're necessary to acknowledge all injustices committed on this land.
中华民国之前，台湾的原住民族在这块土地上所受到任何一个统治者的侵害。 这不是不义遗址吗？
At the heart of this debate is transitional justice, the effort to recognize historical truths and compensate for atrocities committed before Taiwan's shift to democracy. While the Kuomintang says all oppressions should be included in Taiwan's dark history, some activists are concerned that the Kuomintang is attempting to evade responsibility and its role in the country's hard-won democracy. Devin Tai and Joyce Zhen in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Wildfires in Southern California are being called the worst in Los Angeles history. At least 5 people are dead and over 1,000 buildings destroyed as firefighters struggle to contain the flames. John Ventrias reports.
Curtis inspects the charred remains of the trailer park in Pacific Palisades, California, that until Tuesday had been home. The destruction is total. All that's left is an eerie hush as the dry winds that drove the wildfire through this neighborhood blow through the rubble.
How much would you say that you've lost?
Everything. I got my car, whatever's in my car. So, don't know.
But there's little time for reflection here in the Los Angeles suburbs. Multiple blazes are racing through the area, with firefighters saying they are 0% contained. Already over 1,000 buildings have burned. The consensus among longtime residents seems to be that these are the worst fires anyone can remember. In another part of Pacific Palisades, Sana Chong is hurriedly hosing down the bamboo hedge outside his home.
I know this looks pretty stupid, but if I can save one ember from burning down my house, I'll take the risk.
He's fed up with what he sees as inaction over the threat of wildfires and reports of problems with water supplies as firefighters try to rein them in.
We need our governments to be more proactive about these wildfires. They're happening every single several times a year. There must be some things we can do to try to mitigate this. Please. Fire hydrants are empty. Firefighters are doing everything they can, but we need to do things more proactively before.
Now, in the final days of his presidency, Joe Biden has promised help is on the way, pledging to do, quote, anything and everything as long as it takes to tame these fires and help reconstruct. But the scale of the disaster means this won't be easy, and the aftermath will largely fall to the next administration. For now, over 100,000 evacuees wait for news of their losses. In the city of Pasadena, the convention center's been turned into a makeshift shelter, with volunteers handing out Red Cross blankets, food, and other essentials. Just over a week ago, this city welcomed the new year with the celebratory Rose Bowl American Football Championship. Now, with the so-called Eaton fire raging just kilometers away, the mood here has turned bleak.
What was interesting for me was the realization as I was choosing things, the things that I didn't choose. And it wasn't, sometimes you'd look at something, you go, you know what, I've had that for almost all my life, but you know what, I can let that go. I can let it go, I can let it go. And then I took photographs and things that meant something, a little figurine that my daddy bought for me when I was 5, or those kinds of things.
Backup is on the way, with fire crews headed to the scene from as far away as the neighboring state of Arizona. But while weakening winds have Pasadena's fire chief hopeful of progress in the coming days, crews have a brutal fight on their hands. James Lin and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
The man suspected of assassinating a former Cambodian opposition lawmaker in Thailand has been arrested after a day-long search. Lim Kim Ya, a former member of the outlawed Cambodian National Rescue Party, was killed by a gunman in Bangkok on Tuesday after crossing to Thailand with family earlier that day. Police in Cambodia arrested the suspect after Thai authorities found he had crossed the border. Human rights activists are calling on Thai authorities to investigate the murder.
What has happened in the last 24 hours really sends a chill down the spine for any Cambodian political activists that Bangkok is not a safe place. And so I think the Thai government really needs to ensure that there is a thorough, independent investigation to really get to the bottom of who ordered this killing and to prosecute the perpetrators responsible.
The shooting suspect has been identified by Thai authorities as a former Thai Marine who had been working as a taxi driver. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump is asking the Supreme Court to hold sentencing for his hush money case. Sentencing scheduled for Friday. His latest request comes after New York court refused to block the sentencing ahead of his inauguration on January 20th. Trump was found guilty on 34 felony counts of falsifying records of payments to adult film star Stormy Daniels in the lead up to the 2016 election. Trump's lawyers urged the nation's top court to delay sentencing while they investigate the possibility of presidential immunity for Trump's crimes. Taiwan's Navy is practicing how to defend the country's maritime border. It's wrapping up 3 days of exercises designed to keep the military alert before the Lunar New Year. Jaime Okan reports from southern Taiwan.
I'm here in Kaohsiung, which is home to Taiwan's largest naval base, for the final parts of military exercises ahead of the Lunar New Year. The Navy is letting us hop on aboard some of their ships to see how they're training to protect the country's maritime borders. Military personnel here are conducting a simulation of how they would respond to a suspicious vessel heading towards Taiwan in an attempt to breach the country's maritime border. What they're doing is dispatching teams of 2 corvettes armed with anti-ship missiles in less than 30 minutes to practice real combat maneuvers.
面对中共不间断的灰色地带袭扰，我们会持续强化平战结合的训练，我们会全力以赴捍卫海疆的安全。
Also on display are rare underwater operations, where divers practice recovering equipment and fixing critical infrastructure to keep their ships at sea as long as possible. Last year, Taiwan reported the highest number of Chinese Coast Guard and naval ships operating around the country as China conducted 3 large-scale military exercises. That's why in recent years, Taiwan has invested heavily into its domestic shipbuilding industry to ease reliance on the U.S., which is Taiwan's largest provider of weapons. All the ships taking part in this drill have been made in Taiwan, with the newest vessel, the Dawu, commissioned and put into service just 3 months ago.
我们也借由大武舰的性能展示，以及水下作业大队的演练，具体展现了国舰国造的成效，以及我海军水下作业的能量。
With a range of maritime threats around Taiwan, the Navy says that the most important thing is to cooperate with other branches of the military to get a complete picture of what's happening around the country. This will be even more pertinent when there's an uptick in travel ahead of the Lunar New Year, as many people go for their long holiday. Fu Hua Hong and Jaime Okan in Kaohsiung for TaiwanPlus.
An Australian hiker has been found alive after surviving almost 2 weeks alone in the mountains of New South Wales. Hadi Nazari became lost on December 26th after he wandered off to take photos during the hike with his friends in Kosciuszko National Park. He was found 13 days later by a group of hikers as hundreds of emergency services and volunteers searched for him. Police say the 23-year-old survived by foraging for food and water.
Some creeks up there, and he said he'd been finding water where he could and foraging for food where he could in terms of berries. At one point he said he found a couple of muesli bars in a hut.
Rescuers say Nazari had no significant injuries and is in good spirits. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website and follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, we take you to Ireland's County Carlow, where heavy snow has fallen on several of the area's mountains. I'm Ethan Liu. Take care, and I'll see you next time.
The brands you know, some have untold journeys. The things you're familiar with, some have stories you've never heard. These brands bringing you a comfortable life, sweet memories, everyday convenience, and the enjoyment of good health. All come from the same place.
The Made in Taiwan story, every Monday, 8:15 p.m. on TaiwanPlus.